Welcome to Brookline Hub in Depth. I'm your host, Harvey Brofman, publisher of BrooklineHub.com. We'll be coming to you every week with the impactful interviews on the important people, organizations, and subject matters that affect the Brookline community. We're here today with Lisa Wisel, co-owner of Vine Ripe Grill. Most of the Brookline community had learned on March 10th that from the Brookline Patch that the Brookline Parks and Recreation Commission had voted on another vendor other than Vine Ripe Grill continuing on at Robert T. Lynch Golf Course in Brookline, and a public town-owned golf course. Lisa, first off, I'm sorry to hear about this news. What's the last year been like for you and your family and the restaurant?
The last year has been stressful. It's been very difficult because we didn't have the resources to pay all the employees that we normally would in the course of a busy summer. So I worked every single day since last April, other than maybe 6 or 7 days that I took off. So it was really hard because I was opening and closing, working 14, sometimes 16 hours a day, cleaning bathrooms, bussing, ringing the registers, like doing everything that normally your staff would help with. So it's been a really, really tough year. So I was looking forward to this year with sort of things coming back to some sort of normalcy and being able to possibly recoup some of our losses and get back into serving the golfers and the community. So it's been disappointing that it looks like that's not going to happen.
Tell me if I've got this right. The golf course is owned by the public. The vendor is allowed into the club there to put in a restaurant, and you also have a catering business, and then that license gets renewed every so many years. Is that right?
Correct.
And how many years have you been at Vine Ripe? I mean, at
13 years here.
Been at there 13 years. So the license comes due, where hopefully toward the tail end of a pandemic, and you get the word that did you know that that your license was up, that a new vendor process was beginning, and how did that all play out?
Yeah, so our contract ends March 30th. So we knew that it would be up for renewal. And in December, an RFP was issued, which is a public process, anyone can bid. So when we got that RFP, it was sort of financially, for us, unacceptable. We couldn't bid. They were asking for increased rent, which was fine. They do that every RFP. But on top of that, they wanted $100,000 from the vendor to use for the infrastructure of the building. And they put an example in for air conditioning, for redoing the bar area, for possibly upgrading the porch area. In addition to that, they wanted 10% of all our catering sales, which is about half of our business. They wanted us to pay for or discount all of the golf course employees up to $25 a day. So not even our employees, these are golf course employees. So my husband and I looked at it several times thinking they can't possibly be asking for this sort of money after the year we've just been through.
Let
So
me just quickly, what's the contract like now? Like, did you have to do any of these types of things for the
no,
contract?
no, they always want you to have some sort of capital improvement program, but it's always been up to the bidder to put forth what they would like to do in order to get the bid. So you always want to do something because you want the bid, you want to be able to work, and we want to stay here. So you'd always put something in the bid, but $100,000 was, we just couldn't afford it. So we passed on the bid. So what I found out was that there were no bids that came in, not one. So now they sort of had to scramble and figure out what to do. So they decided to do an RFQ. And an RFQ is, it's got limitations. So it's a 1-year contract. They reduced the rent. They weren't asking for any more capital improvement money or anything like that. So it was what it should have been to start. So we bid on that. We certainly were going to do that because we wanted to stay here. So they had their interviews last Monday. There were 3 bidders. They had Zoom interviews with all of us last Monday. And we were told that we would hear by Friday or Monday at the latest what their decision would be. So we didn't hear. And Tuesday night, I was on my computer doing some work and got an email from the Park and Rec department inviting us to a Zoom Park and Rec Commission meeting, which was being held at that moment and actually ending in 10 minutes. And on the agenda was announcing the new vendor at the Robert T. Lynch Golf Course. So I immediately went on the Zoom as everybody was saying goodbye. So I texted Justin Lawson, who's our golf pro here. He didn't respond back to me. I assumed we got it and was just curious why they never told us that this meeting was happening, that we got it. And then I emailed Lee Jackson, who's the director of Park and Rec, no response. So I called someone whom I know on the Park and Rec Commission, and she said, unfortunately, they went in another direction. I'm like, what? I was in shock. And Harvey, to this day, which is 3 days after their decision, after that public meeting, they have not contacted me to tell me that I did not get the bid. 3 days later, there's been no contact as far as that.
So they're wrapping up the meeting. They email you, contact you to say, can you join the meeting? We're going to announce who the vendor is.
Yeah.
And
yeah. I think it was sorry.
And
it wasn't just to me, it was sort of a general email that goes out to the public. But why it was sent at that hour, I don't know.
My understanding is that public commissions and committees have to give 48-hour notice to the public before any with the agenda that's going to be discussed. And did that happen and you just didn't know that you were?
I never got an email about it, but I would think that they would have personally called us and told us that they're having that meeting and that we're sorry we've gone in another direction. I mean, if that had happened and this process wasn't flawed and they, they've done things that they shouldn't have done, I would have said, oh, what are you going to do? We didn't get the bid. But the fact that they kept us in the dark and sort of pulled the rug out from under us is just unacceptable. And the process was not followed properly. And that's what I am asking them to do.
So just to wrap up this part of it, the whole bid process part of it, you
Mhm.
you've been a vendor uh, at the golf course for 13 years. Um, you have you survived the pandemic. Um, and how much business would you say you lost in the last year? Uh,
Probably 60%.
so you've lost 60, you're doing 40% of the business over the last year that you're accustomed to.
Mhm.
Having gone through that, they ask for bidders, and then you're included on that bid to, renew your license. But
Mhm.
after doing a year where you only did 40% of your business, plus who knows what else happened to all of us during the pandemic. We all have our private and personal stories and our own stress on top of just whether the restaurant's making it or not. And on top of that, they want you to throw $100,000 to the town to help do capital improvements right after a awful year like that for all of us. And on top of 10% of your catering sales that are already down, um, and uh, and discounting employees that work for the town, so that they get this additional benefit of you providing them meals. Um, and then after that, when they get no one to bid against you, they start the process again with an RFQ for a year, and you get this notice while a meeting is going on that they're going to make a decision, and then you still haven't gotten any formal word from the commission, and you're supposed to be out by the end of the month. And so my understanding from reading the article in the Patch is that the other vendor um, not only has been notified that they're for now the winning vendor, but they were notified before this meeting.
Yeah.
So before they were going to vote and announce that, before the vote, they let the other vendor know that they were the vendor. Um, and do you have any idea of what their proposal was like?
But I did this morning email Lee Jackson because we, as a citizen in Massachusetts, have the right to all public records. So I have requested those, and I've requested all their phone conversations, the actual bids, any Zoom interviews that they've done, any meetings for town employees with bidders. So I haven't heard back yet, but I have requested all that information so I can sort of piece together what has happened. The big thing is they apparently were supposed to have a public forum before anyone was chosen, which they did not. So, the news now, things are kind of evolving by the minute here, but apparently they were told by our town administrator that they have to have a public forum before they choose anyone. So they have put everything on hold and they are scheduling a public forum for next week.
Okay. Um, so the decision so far, so the decision to choose this other vendor, I think the name is Out of Time or something like that.
I don't really know. I know the name is Chris Yorty, but I'm not sure what what he does.
Sure. I had it on my screen here somewhere, but Right now, I guess that doesn't really matter at this point.
I
Um,
heard something about a fast food restaurant near Fenway or something like that that he runs.
yeah, and this isn't about them really.
Right,
It's
right.
the process
Yep.
and and so I know that I'm assuming that the Parks and Recreation Commission has regular meetings and they talk about various subjects. I'm sure the subject of the golf course has come up during the course of this last period of time that you've had the license. How long has it been? I mean, I know it's 13 years, but this current license is,
So this last one, I think was I think 4 years. I'm not even 100% sure when the last one was.
still about 4 years. And I have a for-profit business, and I've done state bids before and government bids, and usually, I mean, did anyone tell you that there was any issue with the services that you were providing at the golf
No,
course?
never, never. In 13 years, we have had an impeccable Board of Health inspections, never a problem. We don't get customer complaints. Our financials are impeccable. We pay our rent, we pay all our vendors, we pay our help. There's really nothing that I know about that like they have never come to us and said, this is a problem, that is a problem. I don't have a clue. I just don't know what the problem. I don't know. I'm at a loss to figure out why this happened.
I know with all of these bids, the most important thing is transparency.
Mhm.
I've gone in any business that's gotten government bids, the process, everything has to be done in public, and usually there's if there's a discussion on a bid like this, that I'm assuming was this, do you know if the way they process the RFQs, is it just the low bidder gets it, or is it a qualified bid? In other words, they make a decision based on the overall
So
proposal.
that's a really good question. So the RFP has a whole section where you're rated. So they rate you on your menu. They rate you on your capital improvement plan. They rate you on your interviews, on your references. Like it's pages long. So they rate you highly advantageous, or not advantageous for each section. The RFQ had none of that. There was no rating system at all. All we had to submit with the RFQ was a copy of our menu. So the only other thing that they did was have a 1-hour interview with all the bidders. So my big question is, with our impeccable record, with our customer service, with our great food, with all the community service that we do and all the donations, and feeding the DPW for free a couple years ago when we had all those storms, and all the things that we've done, in a 1-hour interview, how could they possibly pick a different vendor without any other way to vote? So I am very curious to see how that voting went. Like, what did they rate him on that he's doing better than us? I'm a female, I'm local. We've been here for 13 years with an impeccable record. We do all this community service. How, it blows my mind how they went in this direction.
I'm also curious to know if there were any relationships between anyone on the commission and the vendor that was eventually chosen. What were the conversations like prior to this RFQ going out, and maybe after the RFQ going out? Was there any rooting interest? And then I'm not implying that there was, but given the fact that, you know, the decision's been put on hold and there's going to be a public forum, these are questions that are legitimate questions to ask.
Yeah,
What-
I don't know if any of that happened. You would tend to sort of think in your mind that maybe something fishy was going on, but I don't know. I don't know what the relationship is. If there's a relationship, if he's just someone that had a great interview, so that they said, oh, let's go with him. He's, you know, he looks great. That's what I'm thinking happened, but I don't know. I don't have any information on that.
Sure, sure. And, you know, and also to make it clear that the town has a right to go in a different direction, and that's the way the rules are and everything. But there's, you know, a way in which I would hope that most Brookline residents would want to operate and want how they want their town to act. And you know, to all so much attention in the last year has been on the plight of restaurants and theaters and places where people congregate because there's a pandemic going on, and, you know, there's loss of life and all of the other things that go along with this horror that everyone's been living through. But to sort of hit a local business while it's down, putting them in a difficult position to succeed. First off, by asking, you're asking the current vendor, who you know has suffered because the golf course has been closed, to come up with $100,000, which is, in my world, is real money. This just doesn't seem right. I think it's also important to point out that, you know, I'm not a golfer, and I actually go to the course to have lunch because it's such a great view, and I get to see other people, you know, stress themselves out trying to golf, and you know, eat at your restaurant. But, you know, I've heard more about the Vine Right Grill because of the things that you've done for the community, for people who cannot go to the golf course and afford to purchase food anywhere, probably. Tell us a little about some of the things that you've done over and above the call of duty for the community in the last 13 years.
So, I mean, for one, and I guess the thing I'm most proud of is our Thanksgiving community dinner. So we started that about 5 years ago, and my husband and I and all our children come in to work 3 days before Thanksgiving and prep all, like turkey and mashed potatoes and squash. And the first year we had shrimp cocktail, and everyone got an individual shrimp cocktail. We rent plates and dishes and glassware and linens and flowers. And the first year we had music. And so we worked for 3 days getting it all ready, getting the whole clubhouse set up. And anyone that cannot afford to have their own Thanksgiving dinner, or senior citizens who have nowhere to go, whose relatives may be far away, they come and we serve. I get volunteers. My parents are like 94 and 90, and they come and they help, and we say grace. It's just a beautiful community service that we donate everything, the whole thing. And we do that in conjunction with the police department, the housing authority, the Rotary Club, the teen center, the senior center. So Casey Hatchett, big kudos to Casey Hatchett, who helps organize this every single year. She gets the police department to help drive people who don't have cars, who can't get here. There's volunteers from the senior center who work there, who drive people. She has a list. It's a huge community effort that we started. So I love that event. This year during the pandemic, we couldn't do that. So we donated hundreds of meals to, and the police department again came and picked them all up, and the housing authority picked them up and delivered them to whoever needs them. So I'm really proud of that. We also, as I mentioned earlier, for the DPW, when we had all those snowstorms a few years ago, I called the DPW and I said, we want to give you guys lunch. And we had 2 different shifts, filled up the whole restaurant, and we donated lunch for everybody. We've donated dinners for families who have suffered COVID this year. So anyone who knew a family member or a friend who had COVID, they just call us up or email me. They give me the address and we deliver meals for free of charge. We do the food pantry gala. We do the senior center gala. We do all the library events. We host all the town schools here, their end of year teacher retirement parties, the 8th grade parties. We don't charge labor for any of those parties. Any town event here at the golf course, we don't charge any catering fees, any labor fees. So over the years, we've done a lot, and I'm not bragging about that. I love that. I love that we're able to do that in this community. I really do. And that is honestly what I'm going to miss the most, those connections to just the wonderful people that we've met over the years. And the golfers that, that they come in every day. I've been seeing the same faces for 13 years. The women golfers, the men's leagues. It's just been a great place to work. So I would think with all of that had to have weighed in somehow in their decision. And I just can't imagine why they, wouldn't have looked at that a little bit more.
Or try to at least thank you.
Yeah, nothing.
Lisa, I'm so sorry that this has happened to you and your family. If I have one last question, and that's, what if this does not get turned around and you don't stay? What is the future of Vine Ripe Grill, do you think?
So I don't know. I haven't given that a lot of thought, but I'm a faithful person, and I feel like one door closes, a window opens, and out I jump, and I survive, and whatever I do, I'll be happy. And I'm almost retirement age, so if this doesn't work out, I'll do something. I'll survive, and it'll be fine. Everything's always fine. So that's, well, I haven't given it any thought really, but I did this this winter. I created a cookbook, and I asked lots of people, friends, family, to submit a recipe that they have used during the pandemic. And with their recipe, they needed to submit a silver lining. So it's my silver lining cookbook, and I distributed to everyone who submitted a recipe. So that's something that for me, there's a silver lining in everything, and there will be for this too.
Lisa, thank you for coming on. We're not a breaking news organization, BrooklineHub.com. We're a nonprofit. And to be honest, I've learned, I know you more over the last 13 years. God, I knew you before you were there. So, I hear more about Vine Ripe Grill because of something that they're doing for the community. And all of these nonprofits that you've helped have always tell me about what you've done. And I know when we publicize your Thanksgiving, events every year. You're always telling us to put the attention on the cause and not your business. And so we know what you're about. And, I just think that you deserve the opportunity to speak to your community and for us to have the opportunity to thank you. I get my chance now, and I have a good feeling at the public hearing a lot more people are gonna have their opportunity. So the only thing I can suggest to you is to have Kleenex with you. Listen to the public.
Oh,
Um,
that's so sweet.
um, Thank you again.
Thank you, Marty.
And see you all next week for another edition of Brookline Hub in Depth.
Hi, my name is Danielle Myers of ADW Video Productions and BrooklineHub.com. BrooklineHub.com is a 501c3 nonprofit online publication dedicated to community building through local reporting and events. Brookline Facing Civil Rights was produced by our founder, Harvey Brofman. The film is about the experiences of African Americans who helped break the wall of segregation that existed in Brookline before the civil rights laws were passed in the 1960s. Last year, the film sold out the Coolidge Corner Theater and included a panel discussion on inclusivity. You can stream the film and the discussion on BrooklineHub.com in exchange for a donation to the Brookline Community Foundation's Safety Net Fund. You can also stream Soul Witness, a film that features interviews with Brookline Holocaust survivors conducted 30 years ago, on soulwitness.org.